Hello, and welcome to the BrewVolution. Today, we're going to be taking a look at IPAs. IPAs are really cool. What they stand for is India Pale Ale. Now, before we start off, we're going to have to go through some beer basics with you. The first of which is how to pour a beer. Now, pouring a beer takes some finesse. You need to pour it at a correct angle so it doesn't get too much head on it. Head is being the foam at the top of the glass, so I don't know exactly what angle it needs to be at, but it needs to be slightly angled so you get this nice pour, good amount of head, and just that wonderful, wonderful look of the beer. Second beer basic is the super cold fallacy. Now, the super cold fallacy is brought up to everyone by none other than Coors Light. Coors Light, you know, it's an industrial light lager. It's a beer that's not prized for its taste, it's prized for its cheapness and how many college students can buy this supposed amount of beer. And now, they've always told you to buy the super cold activated cans because, you know, why not? They want you not to taste the beer. They want you just to drink it and to get drunk, honestly. So having your beer super cold is never a good idea. What you want your beer to be at, I want to say, a good 45 degrees or like anywhere between like 38 to 45 degrees. Now, this is all depending upon the beer that you're buying. It's to the discretion of the beer itself, the style it's in, and the brewery, what they think is the best to drink it from. Because they're brewing it, they probably know what is best for it. And some beers are really cool and have a label to tell you what degree to have it at. So anyways, we have these three awesome IPAs with me today. So all three of these are really good IPAs. The difference between an IPA and a normal pale ale is hops. Hops have these amazing floral characteristic. Like, they're so distinct, so unique in their scent, their aroma, the oils they produce. You can't get them confused with anything else. This is what they look like for the uninitiated. So pretty much with an IPA, it's going to be a lot more hoppier brew than a normal pale ale or a pilsner or anything else than you're used to. Like, once you drink it, you're going to be able to taste that hops. It's really, really bitter. So to start off, we have the, what is it here? The Centennial IPA from Founders. Now, this has a 7.2% ABV, that's alcohol by volume. And it's made in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And with an IBU, it stands for International Bitter Units, of 65. So, always a good brew. I got that amazing, amazing, amazing bitter taste right up in front. It lasts throughout the entire body and into the finish itself. As you can see, it's a really nice golden color. It's a little bit dark from a normal IPA, but that's the kind I go for. With an IPA, if you get darker, it's got to be more flavor. It's not necessarily the bitterness we're talking about, but just a nice, robust flavor burst into your mouth. The body's perfect for an IPA. It's smooth, it's welcoming, and it leaves you with that nice zazz at the end. Like I was telling you about, that bitterness just spurts up right at the end there. So next up on our list, we have the Saranac. It's a red IPA. Pretty much this stuff is amazing. I've loved it. It was one of the new brews that I tried for this specifically, and I just fucking love it. It's everything that I love. It's a red IPA. It has a 6% alcohol by volume and a 63 IBU. So you can see the head on it. It was pretty decent. The taste, again, it's amazing. Get those nice caramel notes into the beginning of it, following all the way through. You got the bitterness just like streamlining from the mid-body to the finish. And if you look at it, that nice dark caramel notes to it, it's one of the beers that really reminds me of something I tried in Germany, one of my favorite beers over there. It was cask conditioned in Hamburg, and it's one of those things that brings me back, and it's made in America. That's the amazing thing about it. If you really want to get into IPAs, you don't know where to start, you don't really like the bitterness, go for this one. So our third and final one is from Foolproof. Foolproof is a new brewery that just popped up in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. I'm pretty happy because a couple years back, the only breweries that Rhode Island had were either brew pubs, which really don't distribute that much unless it's their own store, or Newport Storm. Newport Storm, granted, you know, they're good, they're doing their own thing out in Newport. I had friends that worked there. But I'm just so happy to see Rhode Island finally, like, spurring up all these new breweries that are craft breweries. Foolproof being the ones that I really like because they're doing all their brews in cans. So the cool thing about Foolproof, this one, I wasn't able to get the IBUs on it, but for their IPA Backyard, need the accent on there, their Backyard, it's 6% ABV. As you can see, it's a little bit more pale than the other two here, but it's completely coming up with all the bitterness that they added in with the hops. Oh, it has a really, really nice, like, spicy, upfront taste to your palate. The body itself, it's nice and smooth, with a great finish that leaves that spicy taste to it in the end. It's... If you can find this anywhere, I don't know where they sell it outside of Rhode Island, but if you can find it, go for Foolproof, go for Backyard, and you won't be disappointed. It's probably the best beer that the new Rhode Island breweries have made. Speaking of which, the three new Rhode Island breweries are Foolproof, Bucket, and Grey Sail. I suggest you try them all. Bucket is unfortunately draft only at this point, so if you're not in Rhode Island, you're going to have a hard time finding it. Maybe Southern Mass, you'll be able to find it there too, but other than that, it's... If you see this, or Grey Sail, go for it. Grey Sail comes in cans as well, which is really nice. Yeah, try out all these beers, they're really amazing. My favorite of the three has to be the Saranac. It's just... as much as I love IPAs, it's the red that really did it in for me. It's that nice caramel taste to it. It really reminds me of Germany. Oh my god, it's just... It's hands down my favorite of these. Like, I've drank this guy so many times. The Centennial IPA, it's an amazing IPA. If you want a figurehead, like, flagship IPA, go for this guy. But, in my review here, this is my favorite. Alright, so... talking about the history of IPAs now. IPAs started in England, and they started pretty much around the 1700s. And this is when the East India Trading Company was getting pretty big. Also in England, porters, they had a huge porter movement. Everybody loved porter. You think about a porterhouse steak, guess where they came from? England. Porterhouses. They served so many porters that they had to have a steak to go with it. Porterhouse steak. Now, anyways, going into the IPA, the origination of it, there's two conflicting stories. Pretty much, the first one, what we have is that all these English sailors were going over to India, to their English East India Trading Company, all that fun stuff with the sailors. And they had beer that just wouldn't last the trip. Now, the problem with that is that they didn't have enough preservatives in the beer to keep it from going bad and just rancid and shit. So what they did is they took a bunch of hops during the brewing process and they threw them in instead of their normal, like, whatever minimal amount of hops. They just over-hopped it. And that over-hoppingness made it last forever. And so all that oil, what it does, it acts as a preservative, and pretty much it's going to make the beer last a lot longer. So it would survive the entire trip from England over to India. Thus we have situation number one for IPA. Situation number two is that it started off with, let me look up the name, George Hodgson. This man, he had the Bow Brewery, and that was in London, obviously, but it was the closest to the port where all the East India sailors were docking into. So what Mr. Hodgson would do is set up a contract with all the captains and have his pale ales be the main beer to be traded over with India. Because he made it so cheap, he gave them a year leeway so that they may all do their trading, come back, and they'd be like, here's your profits, here's our profits, thank you for letting us trade this shit. So a thing with that is that he eventually just added more hops, more hops, more hops. Then it became a thing in India. Not the porters, it was more so the pale ales that were extra hopped. Became a thing in India, and around 1835, the first advertisement saying the East India Pale Ale was being used. Now, that name didn't really stick. It stuck as an India Pale Ale, but before that it was just like Pale Ales of India. So George Hodgson, like, never, he and his brewery never laid claim to the origination of an IPA. But it's the most well-known, it's the most well-documented, and history proves the winner of battles always is remembered by history books. So, pretty much, that's who we're going to credit for it. But, again, that's a contradictory statement to everything else in beforehand. William Molyneux declared that the Hodgsons were the first ones to brew IPAs. And now, since he was a writer and writing for everyone, everybody had popular opinion to go towards that, and thusly, there might have been someone else who invented the IPA, we just don't know. It could have been invented just to go over to India. It could have been invented by Mr. Hodgson just for an Indian taste, but essentially what it is, you have to make up your own mind, and essentially we have an amazing brew. Yeah, this is the first BrewVolution, so thank you guys for watching. I want you to subscribe and, like, be a part of the channel. Leave comments, please, because I want to know what you want to see. I am going to talk about beer a shit ton because, quite honestly, I know a lot about beer. I'm not going to tell you my history until a little bit later, but I did kind of grow up in a brewery. I've been around brewers all my life. I've never really liked the shitty industrial light lagers. Another cool thing, I got like a growler here. Now what a growler is, it's a half gallon, that's 64 ounces of beer. Growlers are awesome. If you have a brew pub anywhere near you or a brewery that loves growlers, they're going to say, hey, buy a growler from us, you can come back and refill it, we'll give you our beer. Obviously pay for it, but still. It's about 4 beers worth per pint, so 16 times 4, 64. I also want to show you something really cool that I got from Germany. This awesome Stein. Come on, how can you go wrong with a pewter silver cap? I don't want to tell you how much it was because it was kind of expensive. But that thing's amazing. I drink out of it all the time. It can at least fit 22 ounces of beer in it. That's a bomber. For any of you that don't know what a bomber is, it's a 22-ounce glass. I want to say it's the beer version of what a wine container would be. Without further ado, Prost. I don't think I could do this last one. It's just, might as well just scoop up all that shit. But I really need to pee. Prost. It's like a miniature keg going right into your mouth.